Hi true crime fans, it's me, Patty Lee. Today is October 2nd. It's a Sunday. I think my camera might be leaning. Maybe if I did this, we'd be with it. Okay, so anyway, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cases. Most of them are updates, but these cases will be covering September 30th through October 2nd. And I'm gonna have to stop because I need to fix the tilt. 1 second. Okay, hi true crime fans. It's me, Patty Lee, your favorite dyslexic detective. I don't know if I'm your favorite, actually. I can't say that with evidence, right? Because I don't know who else is dyslexic, and I don't know who your favorite would be. So, this is the True Crime Grapevine. I call it that because I listen to everything out there on the interwebs, what's being reported by all the YouTube channels, by all the court channels like Court TV and Law and Crime. I will look up everything on the interwebs that have to do with usually local sources. So yeah, I do all that all week, and then I squeeze those juicy sources to give you all what everybody's talking about. So you know what the haps is. I keep you up on the haps of true crime. You know what's happening. I try to sound cool, but I probably sound just old, right? What's the hap, Daddy-o? Anyways, it is, now we're into October. I've sort of changed my scape. You can't see too much of it because every week I put my camera a little bit different. But you can see our grapevine back here to represent the True Crime Grapevine. So if you're new, hi. I'm your dyslexic armchair detective, Patty Lee, and this is the True Crime Grapevine. If you're returning, thank you. I appreciate it so much. My daughter's a little concerned because like, oh, you only got 34 likes and she feels bad for me. I'm just glad you're here. If you're watching, thank you. If you'd like to subscribe, it's free. Hit the subscribe button. I will upload at least once a week or once to every 10 days, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes less, but you will be kept up on everything from one upload to the next that everybody on the interwebs are talking about. So I will keep you up to date. You can also like, that would be great if you could hit that thumbs up button, but you don't have to. And if you hit the notification bell, that lets you know when I update. Commenting is also great. If you want to answer any of the multitudes of questions I will spew, that would be wonderful. Okay, so like I said, we have 7 cases for this episode. It is episode 30. Because it's October, one of my favorite channels to watch, he is out of, I think he's out of Southern, near Miami. On that western side is Mel. His name's Melvin. Mel. Hey, Mel. One of my favorite guys. He's interesting, and he lets callers call in. You'll get some like drama and tea, but he's not cruel. He's very empathetic. He doesn't go in for all the crazy, like let's go get them, let's make conspiracy theories and then actually bother those people in real life. He is anti that, and that's why I love him. I started following him during the Gabby Petito case, and I have kept following him. And he also does car chases. So it can be found on the YouTube and on Twitter at little I C K capital M little E little L capital E D. Ick Ed Mel. Right? Oh, the Ed's in between. Dyslexia. What can I say? All right. So because of Mel, I am having a sober October here. So if you've been following, usually at first I was pairing a drink with every case and I was getting wasted and sick, losing a couple days because I'm not a big drinker. So I was very excited to get on the idea of a sober October. So I just have cinnamon coffee to go with, you know, the flavor of the season since it's October now. And I have a little caramel flavoring in it. So, and it's early-ish on Sunday. So yeah, we have our coffee for Sober October. If you'd like to make it a little Irish, if you are not doing the Sober October, hey, you could put a little fireball in it, a little cinnamon. Yeah, if you're dyslexic, cinnamon, you should understand that really well. That would make it a more fun October. Although I think not drinking is just fine too, so I want to welcome everybody. So Sober October is where it's at. Thank you, Icked Mel, for suggesting it. So to introduce, we have an update on the Debbie Collier case. We have an update on the Dylan Rounds case. Those are both just still in investigative phases. I also like to give you guys the cases like they go through the adjudication process. Isn't that kind of fun? Adjudication sounds a little dirty, but it's not. Then we are going to move into cases that somebody has been hooked and booked, and we're starting into the trial phases. It's pre-trial. That's the Eliza Fletcher case. So we have an update on that. We have a lot of pre-trial cases. So once somebody has been arrested and is going to trial, you have pre-trial motions in limine, or in lemonade, as Emily D. Baker says, which helps me remember how to say it a little bit better. She's a law tuber. She usually does pop culture lawsuits, and I get my celebrity cases from watching her. And I also learn a lot about the actual process of the law, because she reads through all the filings. But we have some motions about people going to trial. So Letecia Stauch, we'd like to get her to trial. She keeps playing, it seems like games. I don't know. I can't say for sure. But we'll have an update on her latest. I like to say, bye, Leticia. If you know. Hashtag if you know, you know. Vallow-Daybell, Ms. Daybell as John Pryor, Ms. Vallow as Chad Daybell's lawyer, John Pryor likes to call her. She had a filing, as well as Chad. So they have two separate teams of lawyers, and they both had filings. So I'll catch you up on that. We have a little Alec Murdoch case update. You know, our favorite alleged very corrupt lawyer down in South Cackalack. And we have some updates on the Pike Co Massacre trial. That's the only one that's actually in trial that we're going to talk about. I might bring up a little bit. We have another one that's in trial. I haven't talked about the case previously, and it's disturbing, so I'm thinking about that. All right, so those are the cases that we're going to cover. So please pour yourself whatever you're drinking. If it's something cinnamony, Salud. Or is it Salu? See, where you put the emphasis is it changes the whole idea of something. So drink up. Just caffeine myself here, and let's start. So our first case, the Debbie Collier update. Folks, as per the usual, when a crime first hits the airwaves, it's not usually immediate. So this hit about a week or two after she went missing. She was a 59-year-old mother of an adult daughter, she and son, I believe, and she went missing around Athens, Georgia, around September. I think she went missing on the morning of the 11th, or she went missing on the 10th, and they found her on the 11th. I believe that's how it goes. And the 10th was a Saturday, and the 11th, I believe, was a Sunday. May have the days mixed up, but the dates are correct. She had an accident, which now I think the accident that she had and why she was driving a rental Pacifica seems to be from new information that we got. So she's a mom that was missing. She had made some strange Venmo to her daughter, and with a very strange message, then her daughter alerted police. So we've learned a little bit more about this whole thing, and then she was found the next day unalived in a wooded area 60 miles away from her home. And since this, we've been finding out little by little. So let me catch you up on what we found out. Number one, there was at first discussion that her daughter and husband said, okay, so she is missing. She left the house without her purse and without a phone, I believe. It was also reported. And then we found out, no, the police have her phone. It was found at the crime scene. So, and we also have seen throughout this whole week a number of, the police have released video of her at this Family Dollar store, and we're learning more about that. This past Friday on the 30th, there was actually the county who is looking into this is Habersham County in Georgia, and they had a very sort of detailed and gave away a lot of information. In fact, one of the channels I listened to, Police Off the Cuff, he's a retired New York City police detective. I found him from listening to Duty Ron. He's one of Duty Ron's compatriots there in New York. You know, he's like, hey, we wouldn't have, like, these people are giving us information that maybe they should be holding back. So Mike King, though, speaking on Court TV with Vinny Pelotoni, said, yeah, they gave out a lot, but it is giving us more information. He didn't seem to think it was like too much. And Mike King is also retired police. He's out of from Utah area. So people, you know, have different opinions on it. But the important thing for us as true crime fans is that we got some more tea on this thing. So we did know last week that and I reported it in episode 29, that the daughter had a boyfriend. There was domestic violence. The daughter had a history of addiction, which many people do. And because of the Venmo that was sent from her mother's phone to her, it said they won't let me go. And it was a Venmo for like $2,200, like $84, some like it's seemingly random number. Like, did she empty her, you know, these are the things we don't know. Did she empty her bank account? Why was it that number? And why did she wrote this cryptic message of, they won't let me go. I love you. The key to the house is under the blue flower pot. And everybody's like, wait, she lives with her mom, right? So why would she need to know? Or does she not live with her mom? So some of that has been cleared up through this press conference, number one. So not only she wasn't living with her mom, she was living in a rental that was owned by her stepfather, Debbie Collier's husband, who she lived with at home. And he said he hadn't seen her that day because he got up and went to work. He slept in a different room because they snore. They've been married 12 years. They're both older. If you know, hashtag if you know, you know. Because people do snore, and sometimes if you have extra rooms, people just decide, you know, I love you, kiss, kiss, but you sleep over there because you keep me up all night. The daughter did not live at home. The police said, this is even more interesting, she had been living with her brother in Maryland and had recently moved back, like on September 8th, they know she was in town. And she was living at that home owned by her stepdad, Debbie's husband, with her boyfriend, the one that we know they had a bunch of domestic violence issues. And supposedly, I don't know if this has been confirmed, but supposedly last week we also reported, we, meaning me, also reported that he was suspected as leaving like a nasty message for Debbie or Debbie and her husband at their house, like leave me alone, like, but it was threatening, like, it didn't say the K word, but like that. So, but he moved in with her daughter, but he had just lived there like 2 days before this occurred. So the timing is odd. I mean, the girl's living with her brother. I mean, obviously, I think she moved away from the area where obviously the boyfriend still was, moves back in to the area with her boyfriend. Within 2 days, mom is missing. So, and before we go down, everybody was also mentioning the husband. Is his name Steve? The husband was seen on video working from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So he is not involved. I mean, or at least we can for sure say he himself was not directly involved. And it doesn't seem like they're pointing at him at all. The daughter got the Venmo at 3, but I believe we learned she called the police hours later, like at 5 or 6. So that is interesting, because I thought at first it was right away, and it doesn't seem to have been right away. So now, a couple things we can think of. One, the daughter had just moved into town, so now the Venmo thing kind of makes more sense about where the key is, because she wasn't living at the actual house with her mom. So that might make it more plausible about why that was sent. But the other thing that is but now we have this like lag in reporting time. I guess maybe she had to think about it. Maybe she waited until her dad, maybe she contacted her stepdad, her dad first, and then together, because they were together at the house when the police came for the first check-in, and I believe, and they said, oh, her purse is here, and all she left was, I thought they said all she left with were her keys and I thought they said her credit cards, but the credit cards, the police said, were found at home. Now, in the videotape, she was at a Family Dollar store. It was 60 minutes away from her home. Mike King said she would have passed 9 Family Dollar stores. Now, inside the store, she doesn't appear to be like upset or acting squirrely. She's buying things that were found at the crime scene, including like a rain poncho, a storage bag that it all went in, so that's not weird, but like you know how you light something outside, one of those refillable, they called it a torch, but I just, my dyslexic detective self, one of those fire sticks that I light candles with it because it has, it's far away. One of those. She bought, did she just buy like a blue tarp? Now, she was dressed in a Bulldogs jersey, and her husband was working at the Bulldogs game at UVA, I believe they said. Of course, that was closer to her, that's in Athens. But, and I can't tell if the weather was drizzly, but like, was she, like, could she have been buying all that stuff going to the game? I mean, was she tailgating? He was working in the parking lot, parking cars there. So was she getting stuff to keep things covered and a rain jacket? Like, that kind of makes sense. We don't know. We do know that the police have her phone, and we do know that the police went to the daughter and the boyfriend's house, Steve's rental, and took their phones and searched. That happened on September 14th, so the very next week. But she was an hour away from home. Now we have a really good timeline. They saw her rental on Highway 15, which I guess there was a school camera there, but it's a very well-traveled highway. And they saw her going north at 2:17, and then she's in the store, which is south of wherever she was going, at 2:55. Okay, so, and they said it was 12 miles away. And they don't have any record yet of her coming back that way, but she would have had to gone back south. Now, where was she going when they saw her traveling at 2:17 north? Where was she going? That is the big question that would probably help answer this. Because, like I said, it wasn't that she was going to that Family Dollar store. Number one, she traveled slightly north of there first and was gone doing something, and they haven't, now they said it's really busy on that Highway 15. They're searching with that camera coming back south to see, like, she had to have gone past there to get to this Family Dollar store. So how, you know, unless she went and met somebody and they had her drive where you couldn't see, because they're saying she was alone at the Family Dollar store. The reason they're saying is because she is seen in the store and you can see her car outside the store, but she goes in and shops and buys all that stuff. I believe she is back in her car, right, at 3:09 and sits there for 10 minutes. And that is when, by 3:17, the Venmo to her daughter goes through. So she sent the Venmo message and money at 3:17, or at least around that time, because it was received, I guess, by 3:17. What we don't know is, why was she sitting there so long? Why she sent that amount of money? Why she sent it to her daughter? Because people are saying, well, maybe somebody was in the vehicle with her. I mean, she could have just, her daughter doesn't say, though, it says, they won't let me go, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So if somebody was in the back of her car and had her in some sort of position, although the cops have said, this isn't kidnapping, and this isn't a serial killer. This is personal. What they say, it's personal and deliberate. So if somebody somebody could have been in the car. Why do I say that? Because when you look on the surveillance, the back is all fogged out. You know, there's tinting. This is Georgia. It gets very hot. They have tinting. So there's nobody in the passenger seat, but maybe there's somebody elsewhere in there. Somebody that maybe, we don't know. Why did she go meet the person? Okay, meet somebody, or where was she going? We only know there's a lag in time, and so far they can't see. So if she came back south, did somebody have her come away? They know there weren't cameras. We don't know. She's fine. She appears fine in the store, but, you know, they could have said, if you make any move or act any weird, you know, I don't know, whatever. Or did they know nobody climbed in the car while the car was there, because they can see it the whole time. So she sits there for 10 minutes, sends the text. They can see that her car leaves and goes south, which it ends up going to where, just a few miles away, like very close to that area, was where the crime scene was, where the car was pulled off the road, and then just into the wooded area they found her, and it you know, partially clothed, burned. We do not have an autopsy yet, because they said that would help a lot with, like, they found her the next day, so when was she unalived? We don't know this. But anyways, something new we learned was, after she made that transaction and before she left, within 2 minutes her phone was shut off. So that's interesting. She made this payment, then she shut off her phone, and why would she say, they won't let me go? Which sounds like kidnapping, but the cops are saying, not a kidnapping situation, not a serial killer situation. Nope, this was personal, this was deliberate. Okay, so we know the daughter gets that message at 3:17, thinks that's really weird, somehow doesn't contact, I don't know, we don't know what she's doing. Then we find out that there were 2 911 calls made, and one was, you know, like I think she made 2, or there were 2 calls. The husband called and said, my wife is missing. I got home, my daughter said she got this weird message, blah, blah, blah. Now, they said her purse wasn't there. Or, excuse me, that her purse was at home. We don't know if it's a second purse, but in the video, she has a purse and she uses her cards. So if her purse is back at home, or her cards are back at home, I guess they said the purse was missing, but her cards were there. How did she have extra cards? See, these are weird things, like, that shouldn't be, right? The other thing was the second phone call on Court TV. They played the second 911 call made by the daughter, and she's like, hey, could you track her maybe by her phone, because I have her Apple ID number, and I know that even if it's off, you can track somebody. And then she said, but I tried the password and it's not working. So maybe she thought the police could. I mean, she could have been just giving extra information, but of course, I don't know if that's leakage. Interesting that she had her mom's Apple ID number, password. And we don't know. We know that she was missing that Saturday. We know the last time she was seen was leaving that Family Dollar parking lot right after, and then her phone is turned off. We don't know anything else until her car was tracked, because it was a rental. I believe they tracked the entertainment system through the SM radio and found it parked on this highway nearby. I think it was just a little bit south of that store, off a wooded road, right, and then when they walked into the woods, they found her. There was a burn pit. She was hanging onto, her right hand was wrapped around a tree. Maybe that tells us something about the timing, because rigor mortis, you would still be, rigor mortis is when the body sort of like freezes up, and it only happens a certain amount after death, and then you relax, it goes away. So that might give us some sort of clue, but we don't know what happened between those hours, and that's quite a bit of time. So she was reported missing by 5 or 6 at night. They find her the next afternoon, early afternoon. But we do know she had her cards with her. And we do know she made the we don't know she made the transaction. I shouldn't say that we know that for sure. But, again, if somebody was in the back of the car, why would they allow her all that time to make a long message saying, they won't let me go, and here's where to find the key? I mean, like, and also, why find the key? Like, what do you care about that at that point, right? So we know it's strange whenever anybody is, like, if it's a fake, there's been lots of false, what do you call that? Like alibis. The fact, it's weird, it was sent to the daughter, and it makes it sound like, and somebody else is doing this to me, and here's how you get into my house. Like, because you can't get into my house otherwise. You wouldn't know. That's what it sounds like, kind of an alibi. Like, obviously the daughter couldn't have gone in the house and done anything, because she didn't know how to get in, because she wouldn't have known where the key was, because her mom didn't tell her until 3 o'clock in the afternoon when she went missing. I don't know. Again, but we don't want to just jump on and blame somebody. We do know that she had a very bad relationship with this guy. She just moved back in with the guy. We haven't heard anything about where he was all of Friday afternoon at this time, right? The other weird thing that was brought up this week was that Debbie's sister mentioned to the police, she called in with a tip and said, oh my gosh, I remember that my niece told me. Now again, the niece, is that Amanda, the daughter? Because again, we're getting a lot of information only from Amanda about how it could be other people. Again, which makes me sort of sets off my like that. Sorry. Since it's the daytime, you're going to hear a lot of things in my little, I live right next to down the street from a firehouse. But it does set off alarms, I was going to say. So that works out. Yes, it sets off alarms. Why? Because she said, my mom got into this accident where this guy, stopped short and paint cans fell onto her car, and he was really upset because he was a felon, and please don't tell anybody. And the police said, oh yeah, there was a record, so I guess she did tell, and maybe that's why she was driving the rental, right? Because she had this oops. Okay, now that brings up, it looks like, Amanda told, and she said niece. I don't know if she said directly Amanda. So was this Amanda just giving more, false flags because it already looks bad for Amanda? Or Or could this like be one of those situations where, yeah, there's all this weird stuff going on with their daughter and the ex, and they're, you know, not in the best position and they look guilty, but would the guy have would they have exchanged information at the accident? Would he have her phone? Would he say something about, hey, I'm up here and blah, blah, blah. And she said, okay, well, I have to go to the game, but I can go. Did he promise her something? Like, here's money for the accident. I mean, so that's a consideration too. But because the information, you know, comment below what you think. Is this information suspect because it came from the daughter who also got the money? That's the other thing is, I was thinking, tell me what you think about this. If you're robbing somebody or, you know, whatever, you're doing something to somebody, why do you have them send money to their daughter? Like, if you're going to do something nefarious to them, wouldn't you drive them around to like ATMs or walk into places without you, but like, and take out money that way? The fact the daughter got money makes me really want to know, where was the boyfriend during all this time? That's what I want to know. I want to know where Amanda's boyfriend was during all this time, because there's so much about it to make it look like the daughter wasn't involved. Oh, someone's got me, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. But how could he have gotten Debbie to drive? I mean, did he say, like, why would her phone go off? See, all of this is weird, because I can think like, oh, did they say, hey, like, your daughter's in trouble, come meet us here, like, and that's why she drove that way, like she was getting ready to go to the game, and then he said, we need this stuff, can you pick it up and meet us, like, where they met, like, and meet us at the spot? But why would she turn off her phone? And why send that weird Venmo? See, none of that matches. None of it matches. I want to know where the boyfriend was. And I bet you might want to too. Okay, so probably the next update will be next week, when we will find out the autopsy, because that will tell us. I'm just telling you, rigor mortis, I forget how long it lasts. I don't know. It's all very odd. They were saying, do you think she, or maybe she was beaten, burned, they thought she was dead, and because they said she was grasping onto a tree with the right hand. Was she trying to crawl her way out of the ravine and get back to her vehicle, or at least to the road? See, that would have slowed down her time. Like, if they thought they had hurt her, whoever they is, I don't know. What do you think? Yeah, so the autopsy will probably clarify it. Also, eventually, we'll hear about phone records. We'll hear about any DNA found in the car. We'll hear about the telematics, as we learned from the Barrymore feud thing. Okay, so that was case one, the Debbie Collier case. Sorry that took so long, but that's really kind of still a mystery. And so a lot of people, that has generated most of the talky talk and the chatter chatter on the true crime grapevine this week. You know, I didn't write this down, but I'm just going to throw this in here since I mentioned about telematics. If you remember, we learned all about, or at least I learned all about telematics in great detail during the Barrymore feud arrest, and when we were getting ready to go to trial, and then it didn't go all the way because of various and sundry things. Okay, so anytime there's a body found anywhere in the Colorado area, I pay attention. And just this past week, I believe it was on Friday or Thursday, there was a body found in, I think it's called Windsor, Colorado. it is just up 25 from Broomfield. So usually when there's a body found, and it was found at the beginning of a trailhead, I'll look more into it. But I'm just telling you, we don't have Suzanne Morphew's body yet. It hasn't been found, and anytime they find bones, that's my first thought is because we know Barry went from his house, and like who knows how long he had, and then he went to Broomfield. So anything around that, that's what I think. Telematics can tell you a lot, and I bet it would have said if he went up to Windsor, but because it was like 55 minutes away. But anyways, I don't know about you, but anytime there's a body found in Colorado, that's my first thought is, have we found her yet? Now, Barry, as you remember, told Morgan Gentile, the person he worked with, that he knew how to bury a body that nobody would find. So, we'll see. All right, so another, that was just a little, whatever, thrown in there. Nobody else is talking about that. That was just my thing. All right, so Dylan Rounds update. Dylan Rounds, he was 19. He would be 20, but we think he probably is no more. But his mom, Candace, she is still searching for her baby boy, as any mother would be. And now, Duty Ron, whose channel is at Duty Ron, he's a retired New York City police officer, and he gets a lot of experts on, and he works, and he's the police liaison with Midwest Equisearch and Twyla, and I think his name's Dale Reeder. I am so sorry, I should check that. But they, Mr. Reeder, they were talking about a new drone software that they've been using, and it can do all sorts of interesting analysis, looking for like specific colors. Like you can make it grayscale, black scale, like looking for differences in browns, like looking for a piece of pink. Go to Duty Ron. His experts that he has on, death investigators like Barbara Butcher. He had on an expert about Hondas when they were talking about Kylie Rodney and her CRV. He had on when we were talking about Harmony Montgomery and what happens in the child protective sort of culture and how things can be missed like that. He had on a caseworker. He finds experts that really help fill in the particulars and background of these cases. So I would highly recommend you go to Duty Ron, and because I am not going to do this justice, but right now the thing that Candace has to do is find people to fly the drones. And if you remember from way back when we were first looking for him in June, there was a team who went out and did that for him, and the team did their own video, and they were saying that it's difficult out there because you have to get all these there's a military base close by, and you have to make sure that you give them your flight plan, and you can only they need to know exactly where you are, and you have to fly at a certain height and stuff. And then Twyla was saying this specific drone that they're sending out there with this software, you really need to see the ground a certain way. And she said you would think because there aren't a lot of trees and things it would be easy, but no, it's not, because like the sun and shadows, you have to be just at the right angle. The sun has to be at the right place. She explains it better. Please, or if you're interested in hearing more about this, I will learn about it and report back. Put that down in the comments. If not, just go ahead. Please go on over to at Duty Ron. It was from this week, and listen to them talking about the update in the Dylan Rounds case. So the upshoot of this whole thing is that it is very sensitive to differences within a color spectrum, and even like overturned dirt, even like if a body has been buried and then the dirt's slightly different from the dirt around it. So it can tell like that kind of disturbance. so that is very interesting. So they said if he is out there, they will find him. And we do think the same people that did that drone flying before, I think they are going to be the ones that Candace is going to get to work with her and use this equipment. So Midwest AquaSearch, thumbs up to Twyla, and I think it's Dale Raider. That's his name, Raider. Sorry. I listen to them all the time. Again, dyslexia. But go listen and be hopefully within a couple weeks. I mean, Candace and Dylan's father, they need peace. They need to find Dylan. I mean, unless somebody actually, I mean, we think that the man who's being held had plenty of time. He had Dylan's truck to do things with. The truck did look like it was moved. It did look like someone else had driven it. The four-wheel drive was broken, but it looked like somebody tried to put it in that. We do know now, Candace, on a recent, within the last couple weeks, did relay to the public that one of the reasons she wants a different group of police people on here is that the county that is in charge, I believe it's Box Elder, they said don't tell anybody, but that the actual starting to his car had been missing and then was returned. So it was obviously, we think it was the individual who is being held under suspicion. Brenner. So anyways, but at this point the focus is in finding Dylan. I still have, you can't see it over there, I have my sunflower. We still have our sunflower up for Dylan to remember him by. It is past sunflower season, but his birthday is in August. He loved growing sunflowers. So sunflowers remind me of Dylan. Let's hope that Candace and the father get to bring their son home. All right. Our next case is an update on the Eliza Fletcher case. That is the mom that went missing in Memphis. The interesting part of that whole thing, at first anyways, to me, was she was an heiress, which is kind of crazy. You know, some people would say kindergarten teacher, some people would say heiress, like billion, I think it was $1 billion, or at least business, a hardware business her grandfather started. So she ran 8.9 miles a day, and I don't know if she always took the same route, but, or maybe just this day, she was unlucky enough to run into a monster, which can happen. Her autopsy results were released, and it's horrible. And there's one really weird, surprising thing. So, as I said, Eliza Fletcher was running early in the morning at 4:30. There was surveillance where this car stopped, let her run past, and the guy got out of the car, grabbed her. Now we know that was Cleotha. Now, we were saying Abston, but his last name is Henderson. I don't know if he changed it. He had been in jail for 20 years. Last week I told you that there was SA kit that had not been done on a woman who actually identified him, I believe, by name, and they showed her a lineup, but not of a recent picture, and it just sat there until this happened. Yes, she happens to be African American, and let me just tell you, he would have been in jail. It was over a year ago that he committed this crime. And anyways, yes, he grabbed her. Now, what they saw was he grabbed her, and then the van sat there the vehicle, it was an SUV, a GMC Terrain, sat there for 4 minutes. We're not sure what happened in those 4 minutes. And then she was found 2 days later, I believe, outside of a residence that was vacant. And she was partially clothed, and she was unalived. So what do we know from the autopsy? Well, she died of a gunshot to the back of the head. We know that she also suffered blunt force trauma to her jaw and head. Her jaw was destroyed. Now, I am sure when this goes to trial, we will hear the exact sequence of events, and I am sure that the police have some idea of when this was all occurring. I mean, they saw that she struggled she fought to get into the van, and he obviously subdued her in some way. So the blunt force trauma to the head makes a lot of sense. I don't know if they sat there 4 minutes. I mean, a gunshot wound takes a second. So I'm going to hypothesize that the other thing that was found was fentanyl. And it was found in a liver tissue sample. So I don't think she was a fentanyl user. I would suspect that he could have forced fentanyl somehow into her, onto her, made her take it. Like, maybe that's what was going for that 4 minutes. That would subdue you, because fentanyl is a depressant. It's like heroin. So, and she's a teeny tiny person. So, you know, hit her very hard. She's grabbing her face, and her jaw was all, you know, maybe he was like, no, you're gonna put this in your mouth. And if she was out of it long enough, we know that the time he was seen going back to clean out his car by 7 a.m. So between 4, it's unclear. The timeline says somewhere around 5 o'clock. Was he going to the vacant house, or it must have been he was at some time around 5. There's a time mark. So was that when he was leaving? We don't know. Or is that when he brought her and left her there, maybe, and something happened in between? But the fight happened between 4:30, 4:35-ish. So, I mean, you know, he got her in the van by, I believe it was 4:35. So between then and like around 5 something, where did he go? What did he do? We know that it was the passenger side that he was seen at 7 o'clock in the morning cleaning out. So she was found outside that vacant house, not in it, a day later. So if she was kept alive for, you know, half an hour to an hour or so, you know, at least between 4:30, and we know he returned around 7 a.m. back to his brother's apartment house, I think that gives you enough time that you would metabolize the fentanyl and it would get to your liver, unfortunately. So I would say there was some intermediate place, or the car perhaps, in which that other stuff happened, and then you know, the unaliving took place with the gunshot. That's it's all horrific. I mean, again, as I said before, what can we learn? Well, number one, we're all connected, and it is not okay to let anybody's SA kit sit and not be, you know, not be done. We need to fund more of that. States need to outsource, like maybe the feds need to come in and get the numbers under control, but for violent crimes like that. But the fact that they had his name and number, like that whole Alicia Franklin case, she did everything right, and for some reason I can't help but think because she was a woman of color and he was a man of color that they kind of like, well, this happens all the time and we'll get to it when we get to it. And it wasn't until a white heiress was killed that, oh, suddenly it mattered. Anyway, all right. So we will, I am sure, hear more about that. But that whole case, what can we learn? Like I said, if you're going to run, try to be very aware of where you are. It is not, I'm not victim blaming, but I'm trying to avoid if you are a runner, try to run with somebody else, please. I always say to my kids, not take a friend, take a witness. Harder to fight off too. The other thing that nobody's talking about is when someone's trying to grab you, fall to the ground on all fours. Have you seen a toddler? Toddlers are teeny tiny, but when they want to stay in a store or really tick off their parents, if you've ever seen a toddler drop to the ground, like you're walking along and they just like fall to the ground, it is not very easy. You have to pick up their whole body, even though they're teeny, like toddlers are small, under 50 pounds. So it is like drowning. This is another analogy, but they always say, like, if you are in a mound of something and it's loose, you can suffocate if you go into, like, kids crawl up mounds of like loose dirt or stones. You don't want to be up and down because you'll go right down. You want to be flat. It's harder to move if you are spread across more ground. So if somebody ever tries to grab you, don't fight them on your feet. Drop to your ass like a toddler. Make it hard. Make them have to scoop you and scream your MF head off, right? Scream, roll, drop to the ground, and when you're in the ground, if they have to come down to pick you up, kick them in the face. That, you don't think about that, but, oh, I have a timer going off. So that's just something I always think about, what can we learn? So besides running with a friend, trying to run when it's daylight hours, although it's hard because sometimes, like with a mom and a job, that's the only time you have. Try to vary your route, vary the time you do it, especially if you are alone, and take one of those little, I think they're called rabbits. They're like things that you pull apart and it makes like a horrible high decibel thing. That will also help you. If someone grabs you, you drop to the ground and you pull that thing. And then when they come after you, kick them in the face, kick them in the, everywhere. If you can think of it, practice doing it. That sounds stupid, but if you're a woman, if you're anybody, practice someone trying to get you. That sounds stupid, but if you're at least practice it in your brain, you might have a fair chance. I mean, Eliza didn't have a lot of chances. She didn't expect this. Why would she? She was just out for her run. It's not her fault. All right, let's take a drink. We are up to our update on Letecia Stauch. Okay, so I looked all up about Leticia. This is very interesting. I learned about this from Paul at Reporting Live from my sofa. Hey, Paul, how you doing? Hey, Roscoe, his little dog. I love Paul. He has a great conversational way of talking about true crime. Highly recommend his channel. So Letecia Stauch is a stepmother of Gannon Stauch. He actually would have had a birthday and he would be 14, but when he was 11 and his father was off serving our country in the National Guard, Leticia was looking after Gannon and his sister in Colorado Springs, Colorado, even though they were from South Carolina. I think they moved there, for the military, but maybe for her. Anyway, she had been just married to him a short time. So when he's off, serving, she lost her mind and unalived her son in his basement bedroom and then tried to lie about it and wasn't very smart. And this was in 2020, in January 2020, February. By March, she was caught. Last week, we talked about her new thing is, I have, they don't call it multiple personalities anymore. I forget what it's just so tiring. Dissociative identity disorder. Okay, so maybe one of her identities is also Jewish. Now, I don't think she or her husband, I don't know if she's Jewish because it doesn't say anything about her religion, but apparently she's been, and the only reason I say maybe she's not, because I wouldn't assume anybody who ordered kosher meals isn't Jewish, but for Leticia, I can just see her doing it just to be difficult. So she apparently, maybe she is Jewish, maybe not, but for whatever reason, it has to be for religious reasons, because that's what the complaint says, wants kosher meals, and she's not getting kosher meals. And if you know, my daughter went to a JCC preschool when she was little, and if you've ever learned anything about the Jewish culture, which I highly recommend. In fact, we're coming up on Yom Kippur. It's an interesting holiday. It starts, Rosh Hashanah starts the season, I believe, I forget how long it is, and then you're supposed to like make your amends to people throughout the year before Yom Kippur. It's like the Book of the Dead. If your name's written in it, it's closed. Then you, whatever you did, and whatever, judgment. But so it's kind of a time to remember, like, that's coming up, and it reminds us of our finality and make amends to people, which I think is a great tradition. Anyway, not that Leticia seems to be practicing that, in my opinion. So she's not getting the kosher stuff, though. It can be like milk. Anything dairy has to be separate from everything else. No pork. It has to be blessed by a rabbi, and it has a K on it that marks it as kosher. But it also, there's something about, her complaint says something about wrapping, which I wasn't familiar. Maybe that's the separation between the things. I'm sure that's probably what it was, to separate meat from dairy. Orthodox have to keep maybe even not Orthodox, they keep a whole separate refrigerator for dairy and other meat products. So I don't know, but she's like, I'm hungry, they're not feeding me, they're religiously, my civil rights. The thing is, so last week she's being tested for being dissociative identity disorder. This week, if you watch Linda on It's a Crime, again, highly recommended. She's got a lot of Gannon Stout videos, and she has covered the case thoroughly. Please go check out her channel, check out her playlist for Gannon, and she will tell you. Letecia Stauch she likes writing. She writes to the judge all the time. She's always writing to somebody. She's always complaining. Anyway, bye, Leticia, is all I have to say about this. So, not that she doesn't deserve kosher if she is a practicing Jewish person, of course, but I don't know. My first thought was, is one of her identities a Jewish person? Why is she, I didn't know. It does not say or indicate anywhere on social media that she was Jewish. Gannon, I don't think the Stauch side, like her ex-husband now, I don't believe they were, because his funeral, I think, was in a non-denominational Christian church. That doesn't mean anything really about her, but I don't know. Bye, Leticia. That's all I have to say about that. But anyways, it does have to do with, it just adds to her case volume. She's whatever. All right. The Vallow-Daybell case. We have two more. This is in the pretrial hearing phase. We're supposed to go to trial January 9th, Monday, in 2023. And to that end, early in last week, both sides were sent a motion about by October 14th, you have to hand in your jury questions for the questionnaire. That is so that they could start doing voir dire. And if you're familiar, voir dire, I think it's, I don't know if it's French, because it sounds like it's French to me, but I think it's Latin. It means to speak the truth. I think that's what it means. It is the word in legal terms where lawyers kind of cross-examine or interview potential jurors to see if there's any bias there, to see if they can be a fair jurist. And there's all these rules about what they can ask, how they can ask, how many, you can get rid of so many people for so many reasons. You can't get rid of people, if you seem to be only getting rid of males or females or, people of a certain ethnic or ethnicity or racial background. That's a violation. So voir dire is very interesting, and My background is in psychology. That's where I'm ABD, which is all but dissertation, as an educational psychologist. I understand typical human development, but knowing things about people's beliefs is 100% able to tell you, like, are they going to go with just whatever an authority figure says? That's one thing defense attorneys want to know right off the bat. Oh, somebody's doing their lawn. I hope you can't hear that. Sorry, guys. It's a Sunday afternoon. Anyway, right after that goes out, we start getting these motions. We got motions from Lori Vallow's team, and we got a motion from Chad's team. Lori Vallow's team has asked the judge to consider during this picking of the jury that they not automatically throw out people who say, I can't be on a case with the death penalty because I am morally opposed to the death penalty. Their explanation, which I find very interesting, I mean, as a psychologist, listen, I can just tell you, I find this completely compelling and valid. They said there's research, and I haven't read the research, but I would say, just from everything I know about psychology and bias and judgment, they said people who say, I'm okay with the death penalty, they tend to be not only male, but they tend to be very conservative, and they tend to convict. That's statistically who these people are. Very, like, judgmental, conservative males. And if you're a, especially female, suspect, defendant, that's not your, A, it's not your peer. It's not a jury of your peers. And B, it's almost like handing you for sure a conviction, right? They are asking kind of what happened with the Parkland shooter case, which is still going on, which is, look, let's just have the trial, and then the penalty phase we could get a second jury for. Why do that? Because you're not going to get a first fair trial if the only people who agree to the death penalty are people who are already known to be those who are conservative and convict automatic, like probably authority driven. That tends to go along with like a conservative mindset. So I don't want Lori off the hook. I also don't want an appellate issue. I think that this is all getting, if it's the death penalty, I think you have to be more careful. And I do think it's an appellate issue. Scott Reich at Crime Talk, who is a defense lawyer, he said this isn't going to fly, and this, but it is like puts a pin in it for the appellate issue, and that it's good lawyering, but he doesn't think it's going to make a difference. I think like in the Parkland shooter case, I think you have to be really careful with these highly volatile, sort of very, everybody knows this case. Everybody's looking to see, is she going to get fair treatment? I don't know. We don't know a lot because, Judge Boyce is keeping everything on the DL. We shall see. So that was a motion made by Lori's side. They want there to not be that qualification for just being on the jury. That they want everybody on the jury, and then maybe for the sentencing phase, then you would pick people who were able to, whatever. I think that still creates that same bias. I think maybe they shouldn't ask about how you feel about the death penalty, and that should be something that's a crapshoot. What do you think about that? I don't know, because otherwise you're just setting it up to get the death penalty, aren't you? If that's the only people you let decide. That doesn't seem judicial or fair. But anyway, so that's Lori's stuff. Now, the more interesting filing was by John Pryor. And we're all like, this is the first time we've ever agreed with John Pryor. So one thing is, we know that John Pryor does not want Chad going to trial as a co-conspirator with Lori, because he will be pulled down by her, right? Now, what is John trying to, he's made previous motions about, like, we want to sever, it's prejudicial to my client. I forget what else he said. Because Lori was incompetent for such a long time that when she became competent and she wanted a speedy trial, and then like Chad first wanted his in October, and then he wanted it in October, and then she wanted it, and then okay, no, January was fine, and then now he's like, no, now Chad isn't saying this as much. Chad's lawyer is saying, look, because there are these two phases to a death penalty trial, I'm not ready yet. Which I don't know when he had all that. He had like almost a year to get ready for everything when Lori was incompetent. So it's not the best argument considering the context. But John Pryor's like, look, I've got to get ready for the actual case. And then I've got to get ready for the sentencing phase. And I guess the sentencing phase is you go talk to everybody about everything that's ever known the person from childhood, doctors, nurses, friends, family, anything that could be a mitigating factor. And of course, the more you can get, the better you can do for your client to get them, like to say, look, they couldn't help this, and therefore they shouldn't be killed for this. They shouldn't get the death penalty, even though they've been convicted, they should get life. God, this is such a waste of time. Sorry, I'll just tell you, personally, I don't believe in the death penalty because one, I think people should be kept in jail for their entire life. Because people have made mistakes with the death penalty. And also, it's an easy out for that person. Jail, from what I hear, is horrible. So shouldn't the punishment be, yeah, you're stuck there. Good luck. Forever. So you give them an easy out if you kill them. Also, there have been mistakes. I don't know. It just seems really, I couldn't do it. I just don't, I mean, I could drop somebody on, not me personally, but I mean, if it was like, drop them on a desert island where they're going to eventually not be able to make it off and they won't even be able to survive, that would be horrendous. But you're not killing them. Anyways, that's my own philosophical moral dilemma. See, so I wouldn't make it on the trial, even though I think they're both guilty of sin, but which should probably preclude me anyway. But Chad, so John Pryor, Chad's lawyer, is saying, look, I need more time. And she wants her speedy trial, so we should sever. He's back to, so we should sever this. And also, he keeps calling her Ms. Vallow. He won't call her Mrs. Daybell. Again, another separation thing. And what was the third thing he wanted? Oh, and this is the best, and this is what people can't believe. Chad, through his lawyer, John Pryor, is asking Judge Boyce, look, we want cameras. We want the defendant's family and friends to be able to see what's going on. And, it's like 4 hours away. It's going, they'd have to go to a whole nother city. Again, this is another strategy. Like, Lori doesn't want cameras. Lori wants a fast trial. So, Chad wants cameras, which all the media does too, right? Oh, He wants it fair because of transparency. And that is a big deal in our society. Or at least as far as it stands right now. Is John Pryor going to get the severance? Obviously, we can tell from all these filings. They're going to blame Lori and Alex. That is clear. Chad is throwing Lori under the bus. Lori, as far as we know, the one time we saw in court, she's wearing her little fake, she made a what do you call it? A band out of a hair tie, like, yes, I'm married to Chad. I mean, she seems to still be all in, But Chad, or at least Chad's lawyer, is like, yeah, no. We don't know her. New phone, who dis? That's what it seems like. So we will find out if Boyce allows the severance. And what in the heck, I can't even imagine what Lori would do if that happened. I can't even imagine. Or are they working together and this helps everybody, because then Lori goes nuts, she goes back in the hospital, so she's not in trouble, and then Chad gets his by himself, and he's going to blame Lori and Alex. I don't know how he's going to explain the whole, and kids were found in my backyard and I didn't know, but I was burying a raccoon. Good luck, Chuck or Chad. I don't think he's getting out of it either way. So, but this is interesting lawyering, and we will see more. And everybody's talking about it because we all want cameras. So this is all very exciting. Okay, so the January 9th, as it stands so far, January 9th, 2023 is when Lori and Chad's in Ada County, so Boise, Idaho, when their trial is going to start. Interestingly enough, guess who else is going to be in court on that very day? That's right. Our second to last case update is about Alex Murdaugh. What about Alex? Which lawsuit? Because in which county? There are multitudes, right? He's got, I believe, 98 indictments now in 3 or 4 different counties in South Cac for financial crimes, for murder, for, I don't know, how many crimes can you commit? He's in it. Well, this is a civil case. This has to do with this has to do with the Mallory Beach wrongful death suit. So way back in 2019, a month after the accident, this was the accident, if you watch the Murdoch Murders podcast by Mandy Matney, you can find the podcast on YouTube. Please go listen to it and start with the first one. Continue on. It is unreal. It starts out with, it seems like there was a lot of this corruption going on with Alex Murdaugh, but it was all hidden until this accident occurred with Paul, his son, who has since been unalived on the Moselle property with his mother Maggie. But in 2019, Paul was alive and 19 years old. He's a 2000s baby, I believe. He and his friends went out in his dad's boat. Now, what's important to understand is the boat was insured through Alex's firm, his business, not private. That's number one, important to understand in this. Number two, Paul was 19. He was underage. He had his brother Buster's ID. So they both have red hair and kind of look alike a little bit, but they're very different in height and in weight. In no way would you look at, you could lose weight, but you don't lose 6 inches or whatever. So it comes into play as well. Paul and his friends took Alex's boat, went out drinking on the river / right on the edge of the ocean there, right outside of Beaufort. Now they went to an island, had a bonfire. Then I believe they went to a house party and stopped in where adults were there, and they were provided alcohol. And those people, I believe, said something about giving them a ride home, and they said no, they were going on the boat, they'd be fine. And a lot of people think if you're on a boat, you don't have to be on a roadway and you're not going to hit anything. Bad idea, because you can hit things in the water. But anyways, they just figured they were safer that way from getting a DUI. Then after leaving that house, then they stopped right at the mouth of these intercoastal ways in Beaufort, South Carolina, and went to a bar, and Paul was served there. So Paul bought alcohol at a convenience store, which is owned by this Parker's family. Then they went and partied out on an island. Then they went to a I don't know if it was an oyster roast or a clam bake or a low boil, but they went to a party with like grown-ups in charge, left there, stopped in Beaufort, went into a bar in Beaufort and used the fake ID again there to get drinks. Paul went in with one of the other boys who had a fake ID, and then Connor, I believe it was, and then they got back into the boat, and that's when Paul was belligerent. They tried to take the wheel from him. He said no, he was going too fast. The other people were afraid. They were screaming. There was fights. He fought with his girlfriend who had controlled the wheels, a little iffy. Seems like it was Paul, and they rammed into a bridge abutment, and that's where Mallory Beach was thrown from the boat and obviously sustained some sort of head injury, was unable to, somehow she did not have consciousness and was not able to like swim or get out of the water and drowned and was found a week later. Okay, so a month after that accident, her mother, whose name is Renee Beach, she sues representing for Mallory's estate a wrongful death suit, and she sues the convenience store that gave them the alcohol at first, and then sues the boat owner, which was Alec Murdoch, the dad. Now at the time Paul was getting sued, they threw out Alec, or maybe they didn't throw him out, but he was taken. Paul died in 2021. Soon after, Alec asked for him to be, he was separated out of the lawsuit. He was severed, like what John Pryor wants to do with Chad and Lori. Alec was severed from the case with the Parker Corporation, the Parkers, which was the convenience store. So now, just this week, Judge Daniel Hall, he's a circuit judge in Hampton County. So previously he had said like Alec was severed from the case with the Parker Corporation. Now he's like, no, you're back in. And it was his decision. He reversed himself. So is it because now Alex is poison and he doesn't have any cachet anymore, no more power in Hampton County, in which he and his family were kings? I don't know. But now he is going to, this is a civil case though, this is not criminal. This is just civil. And I forget if if Renee Beach, Mallory's mother, if they got in line, like with the Giraldi, Erica, Jane, Tom Giraldi, the Real Housewife of Beverly Hills case where he was a lawyer who was corrupt and stealing from his clients. When you start to sue people that are going into bankruptcy, you like get in line, you hold your place, like whoever sued first. I don't know if the Beaches got in line in this way because there's really going to be no money left with Alec, but it's just another thing he has to do. And about 2 episodes ago, we reported, meaning me, Patty Lee, the dyslexic detective, reported that Alec had tried to like stay this case, like have this put off on a continuance because he is getting ready for his the murder trial of Maggie and Paul, and the judge said no. Like he's just gonna always be in court. That's like his job, which is funny because he was a lawyer in court, but now he actually has to be the defendant, and he's just going to be in all kinds of lawsuits. So this is a civil lawsuit, and it is going to take place on January 9th, 2023, the same day as Lori and Chad will start, unless, so Alec was severed, now he's back in. Will Judge Boyce sever Lori and Chad? We don't know. So that should be, and we're going to have a very busy, perhaps, interesting January 2023, but it looks like we'll have something to talk about. All right, so please like and subscribe. If you have any ideas, any opinions about what I've said, like disagreement, that is fine too, whatever, any additional information or just your opinion, go ahead and put it down below in the comments. Our last update is about the Pike County Massacre. This is the only case we have that's actually in a trial. So we've had this past, since our last update last week, it started with a couple days. We've had a couple days of sick jurors. I don't know if it's COVID or not related, but it has cut short a number of these trial days. We started out, they still had autopsy of the things that they were talking about, and we had law enforcement that was at the scene came in and talked, and then it continued with family members, the people who were the first people to go to the scene and see what happened. They arrived. The interesting defense questions, and I got a lot of my information from Pretty Lies and Alibis. Gigi is covering, like she is watching this and covering it every single day. Pretty Lies and Alibis on YouTube. They're also, I think, on every podcasting channel. Love Gigi. She is a longtime trial follower. She has a lot of experience following trials, and she has done a mega series on this Pike County massacre that tells you all the different players, because it was 8 people in one family that were unalived by, I say it's like a mix of the Hatfields and McCoys and Romeo and Juliet, because if Romeo's family had just, decided to off all of Juliet's family, that's kind of what this is. So it's got a lot of players. It's basically, it all boiled down to a custody dispute. If you can believe that. We've had a couple of those types of cases, though that's kind of a genre where people decide to unalive other people so they can get custody of a child, like with what happened with Cassie Carley. I mean, unfortunately, people are insane that they think that's the answer, and then actually one of the parents is unalived and the other parent is in jail forever. So it doesn't work out, folks. If we can learn anything, that is not the way to settle a custody dispute. But it was interesting to hear the defense seems to be asking a lot about hunting, about people's hunting experience. And the other thing they seem to be wanting to get off the record, not allow it in, is this idea that people were afraid of George, that he was scary looking, that he was threatening, that people were afraid of George. George is, Jake Wagner has already pled guilty and will be on the stand as a state's witness. He did that to not get the death penalty himself, and also to supposedly, I guess, save his family from the death penalty. Angela, his mother, got 30 years with no possibility of parole. She pled guilty. The father has not been adjudicated yet. He is waiting trial. And the older brother, George, who says he had, and Jake has also said he did not do any of the unaliving himself. He has said he was there to make sure the father didn't unalive Jake, because he was ticked off because it was Jake's child they were after. I don't know what any of that all means, because if you are aware of a crime and you don't tell the police, it doesn't matter why. You become equally complicit. It's called being accomplice. Look it up. So I don't know where the defense is going with this. I really don't. I don't know how he gets out of trouble. But anyways, it's still, I don't know, it's very, the descriptions, it's all very sad. It's really sad. This was a really dumb solution to wanting to have complete custody over a child. It boggles one's imagination how they came up with this and why they said it was okay. And all Wagners agreed. Supposedly there was a family meeting. They all said, yes, we're doing this. And they were friends. That was one of the things that came out this week. There were pictures of the Wagners at Hannah, who was the mother of the baby they wanted, her father's funeral. Her father and the Wagner father were friends, and he unalived him. and he was one of the only people that was aware of what was going on. There was a struggle. He was aware. It's unbelievable. And then he went to his funeral. He was from Kentucky. He and his sons, George and Jake, went with George Sr. to the funeral of the Christopher Sr. I believe that's the funeral that he went to. Unbelievable. Unalived him. Anyways, I highly recommend Pretty Lies and Alibis. I've been talking about this case. You could go back and look a little bit at my playlist, but I haven't done it a lot of justice. It happened in 2016. It took a couple of years for them to figure out exactly what the scenario was and for them to start the arrest, the whole adjudication process, hooking and booking, getting them arrested. That happened, I believe, in 2018. So it was years. It's a very involved and crazy story. There will be mini-series about it. So that was it's not exactly equal to week. So that was episode 30. I am Patty Lee, your dyslexic detective, armchair detective. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. Please leave me any comments. And hey, Sober October. If you're part of it, I'm with you. And you can thank Ikid It's a great idea, right? And that's our episode. Talk to you next week. Bye.